Hello everyone and welcome to another session of AP Human Geography with Mr. Elrod. Today we're going to continue on with our conversation from last video, which was the development of supranational organizations. Today we're going to focus specifically on the European Union. Now really this video is going to be more talk just kind of the formation of the European Union, kind of the purpose of the European Union, and also some of the troubles that the European Union is currently facing in the world. If you want a more specific conversation on the functions of the European Union, kind of how it's put together in some of the specific policies, I would recommend that you go check out CPG Gray's channel on YouTube. He has a great video on the European Union. In fact, I have it on my playlist on the other review videos. I would highly encourage you to check that out. So when we talk about the European Union, it really begins with the formation of an economic supranational state called Benelux. Benelux was Benelux was an economic free zone formulated between Belgium, the Netherlands, and Luxembourg. And this was in an attempt to bring greater economic prosperity through free trade between these countries. And so the European continent, looking to that as their example, decided to draw upon that idea to formulate the European Union. Now, the European Union is created really out of a desire for the European continent to become a greater economic power on the world stage. And so with that, you have to think about Europe had undergone two world wars under a relatively short period of time. They had to undergo being, kind of under the umbrella of the Cold War, being so close to Russia and the Iron Curtain that was formed there. All the conflicts, some of the riots and things that were going on in Europe during the 1960s. Europe just underwent periods of great upheaval for almost the greater part of 100 years, and so not only to bring itself into greater economic prosperity and greater economic competitiveness with the world and the United States and the rest of the world, it's almost this idea to kind of bring Europe together as a collective whole to try and move beyond some of the differences that it has and create greater cohesion in the continent to try and avoid conflict in the future. So the way that the European Union was formed is really through a series of steps, and so there's a couple of organizations that are formed that eventually will become the European Union. The very first organization that is developed is called the OEEC, or the Organization for European Economic Cooperation. And so this is really the first attempt of the Europeans coming together, trying to formulate a common market, and really it's going to be gradual steps that are going to allow for the greater movement of goods and allow for free trade and tax-free movement of goods across international borders in Europe. The next organization is the European Coal and Steel Community, and this focused specifically on the movement of coal and steel. As you learned when you dealt with the Industrial Revolution, coal and steel are essential to industrialization, and so allowing for the movement of coal and steel to countries that didn't have those resources would allow for those countries to develop, and then also allow for them to improve their economic situation and to industrialize. The next organization that is developed is the EEC, the Common Market, or the European Economic Community. And so this again is just another attempt to try and open up freer trade of other goods, moving beyond coal and steel to other things that the European countries had to offer each other, allowing greater economic freedom and trade between the European countries. The next step is the development of the European Community, and what the European Community does is taking the concept of this kind of greater Europe and taking it beyond trade and trying to take it into an area of governance, trying to take it eventually into development of a singular currency that's going to tie the economies of those European countries together, and so trying to create this greater understanding of a larger European community. And eventually this is going to grow into the European Union, which was formulated in 1992. And so when we talk about the European Union, sorry about that. When we talk about the European Union, we're talking about really the bringing together of European countries, not only in trade, but also in common governance, and then also common policy in terms of how they deal with various issues you know human rights and standards on uh, pollution and the environment and those kinds of things. And so it's going to bring together all these ideas. Now, each country is still autonomous and independent, but you have a larger European system that people can appeal to try and redress grievances and things along those lines. Of course, as you've heard, it's going to tie all the currencies together, which is going to help to tie the European economies together. And the idea here is to try and use some of the stronger economies in Europe to bring up some of the weaker, or shore up and bring up some of the weaker economies in Europe. Now, there are specific barriers that countries have to overcome, or not, I guess maybe not barriers, but there's a certain threshold that countries have to meet, economically speaking, before they're allowed to become a part of the European Union. And so, again, you can go to CPG Gray's video to look at that and see what some of the specific things that are required of them are. And so this is almost like one of the averages on the stock market is when you bring all these smaller economies together, create a larger economy. It helps to kind of even things out a little bit and keep one market from becoming too volatile. And and you think about it, Europe, as far as a total population, obviously much larger than the singular populations, you allow for the free movement of people and you allow for the free movement of goods. All the countries collectively have many more resources than any of those countries individually, and so this helps them to become much more competitive. Now, even though countries might be a part of the European Union, that does not necessarily mean they have to be tied to the euro in the monetary policy, I'm sorry, the fiscal policy that's going to be developed by the European Central Bank. And so, obviously, some of the more notable countries like the United Kingdom and then Denmark not being a part of the European Union. And of course, that was very beneficial to them with the whole debt crisis situation, even though it was definitely going to impact those countries because of really the way that the global economy is tied together. Now, just because Europe has tried to overcome some of their issues doesn't mean that the European Union doesn't have problems. And a lot of the problems stem from the histories of the people in the past of Europe, especially with a lot of their varying cultures and histories and really the pride that those people have in who they are and their cultural identity. Because what people feel like the European Union is asking them to do is become less French, Spanish, German, Portuguese, and become more European. And so to some of them, that's an affront. It's offensive, and they're not necessarily willing to lose their cultural identity to the larger collective European identity. Certainly, you had the conflict between the richer nations and the poorer nations, especially as it came to the debt crisis that just happened, and was happening over the last 5 years or so, especially with Germany. Germany came out, and a lot of the poorer European countries came out and were very upset with Germany. Germany was wanting to impose very strict guidelines and restrictions on places like Greece and Spain because of the financial issues that they found themselves in. And so a lot of those countries came out shaking their finger at Germany, very upset with them. But the Germans said, we have minded our p's and q's. We have behaved. You guys kind of need to get your house in order. Our economy is not going to be wrecked anymore because of your financial mismanagement. And so you have that conversation, you have that conflict and tension that's happening between those countries and how exactly they're going to work out some of their differences. Some people in some countries feel like they're losing their autonomy, losing their sovereignty to the European Union, especially when you have some of these courts that people can actually appeal to above the national courts or the state courts that are in each country. Not too long ago, there was an article about how European countries were going to have to pay additional taxes, and the British government came out and said that they would refuse to pay these additional taxes. The European Union said they were going to fine the British government, and so there's a lot of these issues to work out, especially as these states are trying to work together. Another one of the issues that has developed more, I guess maybe over the last several years or so, has been who exactly is allowed to join the European Union. Turkey has signaled that it would like to join the European Union for a number of years. Turkey has wanted to move forward economically and has wanted to move forward kind of politically and tie itself to some of the stronger Western nations. Now, there's some in Europe who like this idea. Think it'd be great to be more inclusive of some of the other regional, maybe kind of outer reaches of Europe. And there are some who don't necessarily like this idea. Uh, some are very concerned because Turkey has a history of, or has had a history of human rights abuses. In fact, there was some articles in the paper just the other day about the Turkish government and some of the issues it's having in regards to human rights. Some do not consider Turkey to be European enough, um, even though, of course, it historically it was a part of the Byzantine Empire, part of the Roman Empire, not seen as European enough. There is the ongoing conflict between on the island of Cyprus between the Greek Cypriots and the Turkish Cypriots, and of course Greece is already a part of the European Union, so they're going to do what they can to keep Turkey from becoming a part of the European Union. The problem with all of that is these European countries maybe try to block Turkey from becoming a part of the European Union. Is, well, who does Turkey turn to in terms of having friends? And so the concern is that Turkey, instead of becoming a part of the more modern Western world and becoming kind of this, a moderate voice, might end up having to turn east into um, some of the more unstable parts of the world, to some of the Arab nations that are not necessarily friendly to the West. And so instead of gaining a friend that can maybe bridge the gap between Western countries and Arab countries, um, parts of Southwest Asia, instead what we've done is we've rejected them and pushed them away, or Europe has rejected them and pushed them away. And that's all that we're going to have time to talk about right now. I hope you found that to be helpful. As always, if you have any questions, leave comments in the box below, and I hope to see you next time.